Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here on my next Sword Art Online episode review. This one's going to be for Season 1, Episode 24, Gilded Hero, second last episode of the season. We are still on Volume 4 of the DVD sets, and light novel number 4 as well. Only one episode to go in this season, and I will probably be doing that review on Thursday, because obviously tomorrow is like the day new comics come out, and there's a new episode of Star Wars Kanan that I want to review, so I'll just do that the day it comes out. And on Friday, after I finish reviewing all the episodes, of course, I will do my kind of arc breakdown for the whole ALO arc. So that's the kind of schedule for things going forward this next rest of this week. But this episode, Gilded Hero, I think is a really good episode. It serves the really nice role of just the episode that kind of ends things off and allows the last episode to kind of do the last bit of kind of drama, last few action moments, and then just kind of be this emotional ending to the story, be the kind of epilogue to the first season of the show. But this episode accomplishes a lot, in that we basically have the full encounter with the villain. Obviously a little bit happens in terms of a kind of different setting in the next episode, but most of it happens here. And obviously this episode is well known for having probably the most controversial scene in all of Sword Art Online. And the scene responsible, I think, for giving this is the only DV that's rated 15s. And on the back it says, contains moderate sexualized threat and moderate violence. So I think it's purely for this scene, the way Kirito disposes of Sugo when it comes down to it, and then a couple of scenes earlier on in the season. But for the most part, I think this episode is kind of responsible for the 15 rating. And I'll talk about that, of course. But we start off immediately after the end of the last episode. Obviously, Kirito has just basically gotten into the top section of Alfheim Online. They've gotten past the world tree, even though they had to use the kind of GM card, control panel card to get past it. And when they arrive up there, they find out there's not a city, and basically that they've been lied to the whole time, that this game fundamentally is not able to be cleared. Whoever's running this game has been lying to all of the players, and it's another reason Kirito has to basically want to take out Sugo, in addition to what he's done to Asuna this whole time. So I like that as well, that he's kind of fighting for the honor of the people who actually care about the virtual world and care about games as well. But we get just a really cool moment where Yui realizes that Asuna is very close, and just uses the fact that she's now kind of has more powers because she has the key card, and just starts bursting through walls, tearing them apart, basically deleting them from the game to get through them. And Kirito and Yui just kind of sprint their way to Asuna, and they finally get there, and I really like the way they do this kind of initial reunion moment of just Yui goes up immediately, and it's this really nice moment where, Yui was the one whose voice got through to Asuna, which gave her the idea to drop the card down because she knew they were close, and it made sense that she was the one to reunite with Asuna first, and then Kirito comes in, and you kind of get the moment like, I'm sorry it took so long, but she's just happy that he's there, happy that she's seeing him again, and happy that she's going to be free. But obviously it's cut short, and Oberon Sugo transports them to basically the control room area where he's in control, and this is where our big final scene happens. And this is definitely the scene that probably there's the most to talk about here. The two key things are just, there's three key things that happens, basically. What Sugo does to Asuna, Ahiko Kayaba showing up, and then the way Kirito kills Oberon, basically. The Asuna thing I'll deal with first, because obviously it kind of happens first. And look, it's a hard scene to watch, and I think that's a lot of people say, that they kind of dislike this scene for what it does. But I think my thoughts on it are that, yes, I agree, it's not the nicest scene to watch, because you really like Asuna as a character, given her develop in the previous arc and a little bit we've got in this arc, and it's just not nice to see this happen. But the villain has been set up to be this way, to be this kind of creepy, you know, um, he's got all these kind of weird fetishes about like licking and stuff like that. And just what he's doing to her and the stuff that he's saying to her gets that across even more heavily in this scene. The fact that he wants to record this and then kind of play it back while he's actually in the real world doing stuff to her. It's really kind of dark and disturbing, but it gets across that you should hate this villain, and kind of sets up that everything that Kirito does to him is absolutely kind of warranted given the way he's been acting. But of course, you know, the reason it gets the 15's rating is, yes, because of Sugo's actions towards Asuna, but also because they've kind of been like hinting at this the entire series, basically, with nearly the whole, every scene between Asuna and Sugo, that he is going to kind of force himself onto her. And he kind of finally does it here and kind of rips off her top, and so she's basically naked from the kind of waist up. But they don't really show you everything, and I respect them for doing that. I respect them, the kind of writers, animators, and stuff like that, the whole kind of creative team, for not going overboard with this in terms of the kind of visuals. That never once throughout this whole scene do they even attempt to try and make this out that you should be in any way like excited because you get to see Asuna kind of naked. It's all about the fact that what Sugo's doing to her is awful. That they don't play up the top being ripped off for kind of, I suppose, sexual effect or anything like that. They play it up as like the worst thing he could possibly do. And Kirito is shocked by this. It makes him furious, and it just makes her so uncomfortable, and it's just Asuna in this awful position that you just never wanted to see her in. And throughout the entire scene, despite all the stuff that he does, they never unnecessarily show you stuff. They never go down the fan service road with this. Whereas in other parts of this season specifically, they didn't do it that much in the original arc. This show has had a history of kind of doing fan service. Like Suga has had a few scenes where they've kind of been a bit fan servicey. Sakuya for sure. Lifa, definitely a few of the shots have been kind of quite fan servicey. But with Asuna throughout this entire season, because of the way the villain is, they've never tried to go down the fan service road with her. That every time they've done anything, it's been, look how awful this is. And so, again, I respect the restraint there, because that this show throughout this, you know, what am I trying to say here? This show, you don't expect a huge level of maturity from. It has some nice emotional beats, some nice fight scenes, stuff like that, but you don't expect it to deal with anything too crazy mature. And this is a complex, controversial topic to bring up here. Basically, the fact that Sugo is basically sexually assaulting Asuna in this scene, kind of groping her, I suppose is the correct word. And given that that's what's happening, this show, to deal with it, in my opinion, in a relatively mature manner, I thought it was very well done. Because again, they more played up the drama of what's actually happening rather than Asuna's naked or anything like that. So I definitely respect the show for doing that and kind of focusing more on the fact that, like, look how she's feeling. No, don't look at her. It's more about how she's feeling. Look how Kirito's feeling, seeing this happen to this person he cares about so much. And then again, look how much you should hate Sugo for doing what he's doing. So, you know, it shocked me when I saw it for the first time that the show went down this road, kind of going as far as it did. But some of the shows maybe would have went further, and I respect the restraint that the show had in not going overboard with it. Um, and then even after like Sugo is dealt with, they still don't go down the road you'd expect other shows to go down. That even though it's just her and Kirito left when Sugo's dealt with, they don't even do what you would maybe expect them to do, like have the joke that okay, they have the emotional moment, and then she suddenly realizes she's still naked and kind of covers up and like smacks Kirito or something like that, or something like that. They never once make light of the fact of what just happened here. That they play up the fact that it's an emotional reunion for the two of them, and that like it's over, she's been saved fully. But they don't even attempt to kind of make light of what happened, and that is the thing that a lot of other shows would missing the point tonally, just after this crazy event has just happened. So I definitely appreciate that. Um, but yeah, from there basically you get that Kirito is kind of helpless. The situation with regards to Sugo Kirito is that Sugo is abusing his power as the leader of this virtual world. He hasn't earned any of this. He hasn't put the time in to like level up his character properly. He hasn't really been playing the game, even though he kind of quote unquote made it. He is just the king because of his position. He has all this power because of his position. And so the dynamic that they play on here is that Kirito represents the kind of person who cares about the virtual world, treats it as if it's basically the real world, has leveled up his character properly. His skills at the game are because of time he spent and because he respects the world that he's in. Whereas Sugo doesn't, and treats it as a kind of role-play fantasy thing, that anything that happens in the virtual world doesn't count because it's virtual. He can do whatever he wants. He can be this king doing super role play, doing the thing that kind of Kirito never wanted to do in the game. That understanding that if you act a certain way in the virtual world, it does reflect who you are in the real world. And so when the kind of tables get turned, the situation that you have with that, even though Kirito has the admin power, all he does is basically level the playing field. He puts Sugo down to the level that he should be at, and that is level 1, having not really put any time into actually experiencing his character. He gives him the most powerful sword in the game because it sort of makes sense. He is, by his nature of his position, the king of this world, so he gives him the best sword in the game. But he has no skill with it. And Kirito doesn't give himself any advantages, any bonuses. He just picks up his own sword, which we know is just a fairly average sword bought from a shop in one of the towns. His gear is again fairly average. And he just challenges him to a duel. And basically it's just like, I've experienced worse than this in SAO. Now it is time for you to experience the same. And it's really crazy, obviously, what happens here. The visuals that you get here are quite graphic, but as I said, you hate this guy. You understand everything Kirito is doing to him and are kind of cheering him on throughout it. He turns the pain absorber down to 0. Cut on the cheek and he's in horrible pain, Sugo. He then chops his arm off and he basically experiences the pain of that. He then chops him in half and then grabs the top of his body, which is still alive, tosses it into the air, and then impales him on his giant sword through the eye. Crazy visuals, but a real, okay, you completely understood that overkill from Kirito at that point in time, that he's just showing him that, look, you completely disrespected everything that the virtual world in the game stands for. Look at what you did to Asuna. You deserve everything you get here, and you have that reunion scene I talked about. And it's just very nice because not a lot is said. It's just that she's just like, I had faith in you, you are my hero. And he just kind of denies that because, he's saying, no, I don't have the power. But I will try to be that person. And she's just accepting, okay. It was just a really nice scene where, even though Asuna's just been through so much, she she is still kind of strong enough at this point to kind of help Kirito after he's just kind of experienced this kind of moment of weakness, not being able to help, like having to like rely on Kaiba. And the Kaiba section of this scene is interesting as well because you're not really expecting him to come back, but it makes sense because, as I said, when I kind of analyzed Kaiba in the kind of last couple of reviews for the Aincrad arc, he as a villain was never, I suppose, evil. He was just kind of he kind of gradually misunderstood his goal in the first place, and fundamentally, what Kaiba is about is this guy who just wants the virtual world to be treated as something that is not just this place to role play. Like, what Kaiba doesn't want to happen is basically people to treat the game like Sugo does. What he wants is for more and more people to treat it in the same way that Kazuto does. And he has learned from Kazuto that players can kind of beat the system, that even though it is a virtual world and it's a game and it's kind of controlled, that because there are human players playing, things are different, things do change. And he's kind of learned that, and kind of that's why he helps Kirito at this point in time. And I like how they kind of have this relationship where they're not friends, but they have similar, I suppose, views on things because of how they see the virtual world. And he just basically plays like, "You're giving up now. Was your fight with me for nothing?" And he obviously gives him the access codes and stuff like that to his ID, Heathcliff, and that gives him the ability to basically get past Oberon's kind of GM control and stuff like that. And then you get that scene afterwards when he logs Asuna out and he just basically says Kaiba, and they talk. And again, what it comes down to is just that, like, we're not friends. We're not like, we don't give each other favors here. Everything has a cost, and Kirito's just like, okay, you helped me. What do you want? And what he does is interesting because he just gives him what's called the World Seed, and basically just says, do what you want with it. Like, use it the way I want you to use it, or delete it. That's up to you. Just put some thought into this, is all he asks. And you don't get the reveal about what the World Seed is until the next episode, but you get a hint in what Kaiba says to him as he gives it to him. If you care even like a tiny bit about the virtual world, you will look into this. And obviously what it is it's basically the source code for basically the cardinal system, the basis of what Alfheim Online and Sword Art Online are as games. It's this framework that makes a virtual world game that you can basically build a specific type of game on top of. And it's going to help because games obviously take a lot of money to produce, and given these two incidents that have just happened in these two arcs, the virtual world and the games, that industry, is basically gone after these two crazy incidents are clearly going to be in the public. But now that there's this kind of open source kind of, skeleton of a system to build a game on top of, anyone can make a virtual world, and it gives it the opportunity for the people who care about the virtual world to make the games that they want and the community to develop from there. I'll talk about this more in the next review, but I just like the setup for that here. But from there, we also get a final scene with Kirito and Yui before Kirito logs out. And that was just the one where I like it, in that she's just happy that Asuna is free. And she's going to be with him forever because she saved her kind of core processor memory in the nerve gear. And so even if this world is gone, she'll always be there for whatever game Kirito plays. So I like that, and it was just this sense of that, they will be back to the virtual world to see her, that she isn't just here for this episode to help, that she is an important person for Asuna and Kirito, and they do really see her as their daughter. Final real scene to talk about is the final scene of the episode, and that's he logs out himself, and Sugaha is there waiting for him because she was worried when he took so long to basically log out. And it's an interesting scene because you can see that she blushes from being so close to him when he wakes up, and that she still cares about him in that way. But the fact that she kind of a few minutes into the scene kind of goes like, okay, you're going to say something to me, stop, you've got to go to Asuna right now, she's probably waiting for you, you have to see her. I liked that because she at that moment just has fully realized that I'm kind of happy just having my brother back. This has been something that he needs. I won't have him back fully until he has her back. And it was just this nice moment where she just like, she kind of has got her feelings out. She knows how the situation stands, and kind of has the capacity to get it, to kind of get past it now, and can help him properly, get back to Asuna. And he just leaves on the bike and is heading for the hospital, and that's how we end this episode, with him going to meet Asuna for the first time in the real world. We haven't seen her awake just yet, so we don't know the full situation, but obviously there's still the fight in the hospital car park to come before the reunion happens. But primarily, I like that they leave the final episode for just this one real world fight, and then kind of epilogue ending nice moments. So this episode, Gilded Hero, has some very controversial scenes in it, but as I said, for what this show could have done with them, given the way it's done some of the stuff, some of its fan service, it was extremely restrained in how it did this very mature topic and the nature of what actually was happening in that scene. I thought it was very kind of just well done. It's kind of hard to describe a scene where such a horrible thing happens as like well done, but it was just they handle it maturely when you almost kind of didn't expect the show to do that, and I have a lot of respect for the show for doing that. But then there's also some very nice moments at the end, is just these kind of final moments with even the kind of Kayaba scene was very kind of just well done, kind of connecting to other stuff, and just those kind of those kind of few reunion scenes that Kirito and Asuna have in the virtual world were nice, and Yui's. But that's the review. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on my review, on the episode, especially the controversial scene. But other than that, that has been the review. Thanks for watching it, and bye.